Welcome to your Real Estate Update with Darren Ahearn. Each week, we break down housing trends, mortgage updates, buyer and seller strategies, and the local changes shaping Frederick County and beyond. No fluff, just smart insight to help you make better decisions with your home and your money.
Hey, welcome back. This is Darren Ahearn with RE/MAX Results, bringing you over 23 years experience in the Maryland, PA, and all over you could ever think about anything with real estate regions. So welcome back to your Frederick Everything Update live right here. Want to thank you guys for tuning on in. We are live here in Studio 401 on North Market Street in Frederick, Maryland. So episode number 13. So strap in. Get ready for your weekly dose of real estate reality, because the reality, it's a capital R this week. There is definitely some big changes and things happening. So we're going to touch them and get into all that good stuff tonight. So thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys hit the like, subscribe, ring the bell, whole button thing. Share it with everybody that you know out there and appreciate it. And also, if you're joining us on here, on the stream, you can definitely type in any of the questions you have. I'll be able to go ahead and see that and address anything that's on your mind, because this entire program and podcast show is all about what you want to know with real estate stuff. So there's a lot of noise out there. I tell people all the time, I don't know it all, but I have enough experience to be dangerous, selling almost 750 homes in this whole region and all this kind of fun stuff. So it's good. Always staying pretty sharp on things. And I want to bring it to you raw, real, and live, which is the best things to help arm and danger you as a buyer, seller, investor, renter, whatever it is. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. Also, real quick, $100 Sheets gift card. We're doing our big summer fun giveaway. Unfortunately, rates are not going in the direction we want. I think today or something on New Mortgage News Daily, it was still hovering about 6.75% for a 30-year conventional note. But basically, Sheets $100 gift card. Whoever can basically give us your information. Tell me what day do you think that interest rates will get down to 6.25% according to the Mortgage News Daily app, which is one of the best ones you can download. It's a really great resource and tool. It changes like twice a day, and it'll give you the latest and greatest with mortgage news and stuff and why it's moving in what direction and predictability things, especially when it comes up to this September, the Fed meeting up again. So far, the prediction is they're going to raise rates maybe, which is not what we want to hear, but we'll see what happens. So, yep. So I'm here for you. Make sure you put in your questions or victories. You can type in anything you want. Just be good about real estate. Nice kids. Keep it on track. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much. We're going to get, also, I want to make sure to let you know, I do have great referral partners. I've had some people already contact me and say, hey, Darren, I live, in Mississippi or Florida or California, wherever. And how do I get some good help? How do I get an agent like yourself? Because obviously I'm not jumping in an airplane and helping you out there. I'm not licensed in other states besides Maryland, Pennsylvania. I do have a team for Virginia, West Virginia. But we have great referral partners that are top 3% of all agents and know what in the world is going on. And it doesn't cost you a dime. So I'll be definitely willing to help you out. I know what questions to ask. I got people I know, and I will basically hook you up and get you all taken care of. Because it's really, really important, because experience matters, especially the largest purchase or biggest thing you ever sell, largest sale as well. So, all right, I got you covered. All right. So don't forget also Monday nights or Saturdays. Sorry, this is Monday night, 7:00 every week. And also on Saturdays, I am your host also at 9:30 a.m., the premier station of Frederick, the voice of Frederick. And so every single Saturday, 11 o'clock to 11:30, Terry Kernan from Presidential Bank Mortgage has been on with me nearly now almost 10 years coming up. And we're on each and every week as well over on that platform. And it's been great. So we have thousands of listeners and people that have tuned in over on that side as well. So thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. And if you missed last week's on this program, on podcast, last week, Amy Phillips from Connie Phillips Insurance, another one of our awesome, amazing sponsors. She was on with me and we were talking shop all about everything you could think about with homeowners insurance. And man, I feel like we almost just scratched the surface in 1 hour. It's incredible. Lots of great information. Got a lot of great feedback this week. People said, man, we've not heard a lot of that stuff before, especially the changes, especially the things that really directly affect you. And there's just so many things. And so that's why we're here. This is why I love doing what I do and all that. So, all righty, we're going to snap on into it. And also real quick, Community Title Network, great sponsor as well. You'll be able to see their information. Brian, Paul, and Diego, Nancy, Mike, everybody, the whole team, everybody over there. And they've just been absolutely amazing to help out with all of our settlements and making sure that everything is nice and smooth and no big problems whatsoever. So they're doing another one for me, I think, this weekend. Coming up Thursday, I got a settlement. So they've done great, and I just got another house under contract here in Frederick, and they've started to get that file in motion for a September settlement. It's crazy. I can't believe we're already talking about September settlements and maybe even almost October, depending on the situation. So, all right, tonight, big subject. I had somebody, they said, oh, you're the housing nerd. You're the real estate guy that we hear all the time. I said, okay, I'll take it as a compliment. So that's the kind of thing I kind of adopt now. I am your Frederick housing nerd. So I love it. I love it. All right. What are we going to do when all hell breaks loose in a real estate transaction? I'm going to continue on talking in, like I have in the last few segments before Amy was on last week with me. I'm going to get into a little bit more details about all the different things that can absolutely go wrong when it comes to a transaction. What are the things that can delay settlements? But before I do that, we're going to get into Frederick numbers, what's happening in our neck of the woods right here. And then we're going to take a commercial break. And so we're going to look at the numbers. All right. So this week, check this out. We have 697 homes for sale in Frederick County. So this is that number that's been weird for the last almost 7-8 weeks. 2 months, it's been really, really flat. Last week, 735. We came down, and the weeks before was 709. And that's something that in my 23 years, we've not seen that kind of flat movement as far as inventory in the market. And so a lot of sellers are still holding back. If you haven't put your house on the market yet, the biggest thing I get right now is, should we wait till the springtime? And so it all depends on your situation. That's the key. No one has a crystal ball. We don't eat glass. We don't know what the future is. But if the trend is our friend and things look like what they're looking like, we are definitely seeing values slow down quite a bit this last week. And it's this not just kids going back to school, people coming off vacations and hitting the pause button. There's just a lot of news and a lot more uncertainty in some degree that we're basically starting to feel and experience right now. So there's no motivation. There's no urgency from buyers right now, especially when interest rates in the last week have trickled up just a tiny bit more, which is never fun. So I do believe that with the midterms, as we get closer to that, who knows how that's going to play in the mix. The funny thing I've always said is this: election stuff, politics, midterms, and all this stuff, there is nothing earth shattering that's going to be decided on, changed, voted on, that is going to absolutely substantially change the housing market. It's just not. The thing that's going to do it is what the heck happens with the 10-year treasury and the movement of that. And that is all based upon the CPI and a lot of other index and economic numbers that most people have no idea how it's tied together. And I'm not going to go into the details on a lot of these things, but I can tell you this. It is a stronger possibility now than even 2, 3, 4 weeks ago that it's true. Interest rates really could start to get into the 7% range again. That really is going to cause a lot more pause. They always go up faster than coming back down. But I do believe also once we do get through midterms and we see like the difference of some things with how that's going to play out with politics, there's no doubt about it. There could be a few changes within the system that's going to be more favorable towards housing. And so that's already been being pushed. And there's some radical ideas that we've talked about before. I have mentioned about the portable mortgage rate, the 3%, take it with you to the next house. It's never going to work. Investors and the banks and all them, they're never going to go for it. It's just never going to happen like that. There's too many intricacies involved that makes it much more complex than just a simple transition and transaction of ownership and changing the mortgage over to another property. So, and so that's just some of my thoughts. Great ideas. Some of it, I really applaud this administration for bringing up and opening up things that creativity that we've not seen. But at the end of the day, it's just not going to happen because you got to understand he who has the gold makes the rules. So, all right. So here we go. That's the inventory coming soon. 78 under contract. We have 516 homes right now under contract. We have a little bit more. We are about 5 or 6% in volume higher than this time last year. Inventory itself is also up just a little bit. So last year at this time, we had 631 homes for sale. We're at 697. So nothing earth shattering. As I've said many times on the program, really until we get over 900 or even 1,000 homes for sale, that's when we will really start to see a lot of the prices of homes in most areas start to take a little bit of a nosedive a lot faster than the equaling out we're seeing right now. So things have been pretty flat. We are still up right around 2%. We were at like 2.3, 2.6. Depends on what communities, areas as a whole, and also price point ranges. But as a whole, it's staying pretty steady and hanging on by a thread, in my opinion. The sold stuff last 30 days, 305. So obviously that's averaging about 10 or 11 homes a day. That is selling in Frederick County right now. New home construction is down just a little bit once again. So we're still coming up a little shorter than we thought on that. Even though people yell and scream, they say, Darren, everywhere we look, we see building happening. That's true. It looks like from the naked eye, it looks like there's a lot of building. But as far as buyer demand that wants that, there's still not quite enough. A lot of that's getting sold pretty rapidly. And of course, builders, 9 out of 10 of them, they do not build homes until they're already sold, basically. And I just had one. I have one in Montgomery County that we're not even going to settle till Halloween. We're going to show up in costumes at settlement. And that started back in January. We started that process in January, so it took 10 months. So that's kind of the time frame. It can be 6 months to 10 months, depending if you have a custom home. If I help you buy a piece of land that's 1, 5, 10, 100 acres, whatever, you definitely can count on about a year to 14 months to be able to have your home built, depending on the size and how much customization is involved. So right now, 305 homes in the last 30 days. Last year it was 495. So that was, I'm sorry, that's another number, 305. Let me get a resales, 277. The median price right now in Frederick, same thing, flat as can be, 510. Last year it was 495. So we are up just a tiny bit. That's that 2 to 3% range we can see on the median. And then when you go to the average is 549,000. And last year's average was 548. That's the flatness. When you take out the highs and lows, that's the median. The average has everything involved. Sometimes that really does skew the numbers just a tiny bit. And that's why we as real estate agents like to basically back out some of these pieces of data that can skew the data, and it's not as accurate and as tight as we would like it to pretty much be. Single family homes, 197. The average time in the market, 17, and then 36 is an average. That's been holding fairly steady with a median price for single family homes, 620, and the average 652. Single family or townhouses and condos, there's 103 of those right now sold. In the last 30 days, 35 average days in the market. No difference hardly whatsoever, which is really an anomaly that we've seen built up probably only in the last 2 months, which is pretty unusual. 35 average days, 430 price, 455. And that again, very, very steady. List to price ratio, 98.6. So sellers are still getting as a whole about 1.4% less than their asking price. And we are still seeing about 29% to 31% of all sellers basically having to reduce their price to get an offer because they overpriced their house out of the gate. So, all right. So those are the numbers for that. I'm going to touch on Maryland, and then we're going to take a commercial break. And we're going to thank our awesome, amazing sponsors. So, as far as Maryland is, so as far as Frederick County, the last thing is the inventory, 3.1 months of supply, whereas Maryland is 3.4. So we're basically doing a tad bit better than the entire average of the state of Maryland in almost all capacities, even when it comes time to seeing how much the growth is. We're at 2.3 year to date, month over month for July of last year, 2.3 in prices and 3% in the median or the average. And then volume, the one that's really a shocker is the volume. The amount of volume up just in this 1 month was a little bit higher, 14% than last year at this time. But as a year to date number, it's more like 5 to 6%. So, all right, check this out. Here's all of our awesome sponsors. And thank you guys for tuning in. I will be right back to get down to what do you do when all hell breaks loose in a transaction.
Life doesn't always go as planned, but with Connie Phillips Insurance, you'll be ready for whatever comes your way. As an independent agent, CPI shops multiple carriers to find the right coverage at the right price. Auto, home, life, or business, we got you covered with personal service you can trust. Call Connie Phillips Insurance today at 301-662-5717. Remember, advising what's in your best interest, not just selling policies.
Hi, I'm Terry Kernan, Vice President and Branch Manager of Presidential Bank Mortgage in Frederick. Today's podcast is brought to you by Presidential Bank Mortgage in Frederick. Since I opened the branch in July of 1999, we've built our success on experience, stability, and exceptional customer service. In fact, most of our team has been with us for over 10 years, and over 1/3 have been with us for more than 20 years. So whether you're buying your first home, building your dream home, investing with a DSCR loan, or just plain old refinancing, we offer every major loan program nationwide and are licensed in all 50 states. Give my team a call at Presidential Bank Mortgage, where experience truly makes the difference.
All right, I am Darren Ahearn with RE/MAX Results, bringing you over 23 years experience right here. And I want to thank you guys once again for tuning in. Make sure you put in your questions, comments, whatever you got for me tonight. So, all right, weekly housing update. This came out just today. I'm going to read just a piece of this. It says this week prices, and then I'm going to get into our main content. This week prices continue to decline a year-over-year basis. No kidding. If you go on Zillow, Redfin, all these Row.com and reports and all the Inman News and other places, this has been the trend overall. But at the end of the day in Frederick County and the surrounding area, we're still in probably the hottest part of the country. And people ask all the time, why are we not seeing any decline consistently in our area? And that's simply because we have the most money in the country in our DC metro and the jobs and all that good stuff. So we're kind of insulated. We're kind of a little bit of we're in our own little bubble, to be very honest with you. But as we can see, it's still starting to affect here in the Northeast area a little bit. So summer progresses. Whether the signals weaknesses or a softening demand or simply reflects sellers pricing more realistically from the start, as seen through much of 2026, remains something to watch. Supporting this, the latter, the recent housing alignment report shows that with a median list price have been declining, the median price across the views was held pretty steady, suggesting that buyers remain active and represent a well-qualified pool. Meanwhile, active inventory climbed to its highest level since late in 2019, giving buyers more options to choose from. So we've seen that here. It's just a tiny bit, but nothing at all yet to get alarmed about. Though the share of the lower of the price homes has become the smaller part of today's housing market, new listings have retreated back from being 2 consecutive weeks a year-over-year basis. And with mortgage rates remaining elevated, new sellers may feel hesitant about entering the market. No kidding. So that's what we're seeing is a lot of sellers are saying, this doesn't seem like it's a good time to sell. And I say, hey, look, the market is created by your situation. You can make it whatever you want it to be. It can be a good transaction. It can be seamless pretty much and not a lot of headache, or you can basically take the wrong steps, not have the right marketing strategy and pricing strategy, and you're going to hate life. You're going to be mad, ticked off, and I promise you, you'll get less later. Active inventory climbed 3.6 year over year. Homes of sales accelerated again. The number of active kept climbing towards the 1.2 million this week, the highest level since November of 2019. So that number I got, and there was another one, and I look at chat and all the other fun things, about 1.4 million. So the thing I don't like is some of this data, sometimes there's almost like 200,000 discrepancy, and now it gets down to, did they factor in for sale by owners, or how much investor, how many, all the business investing and other things like that. Single family homes versus condos versus townhouse versus whatever. And so all these different numbers, we try to merge together and find out what exact data was actually pulled to create this one numeric number. And so it is the clearest sign yet that the market is still working through the pandemic era of the shortage, but we're still well below pandemic norms. In addition, the composition of the inventory has shifted. The share of the home price between 370 has declined from nearly 50% in 2021 to 42% in 2026. According to Row.com, 2026 housing alignment report says a sign that lower tiered homes are becoming a smaller piece of today's market. That's an interesting thing that we've seen as well. Then the median listing price fell 1.3% year over year. And then new listings, a measure of the sellers putting homes up for sale, fell 0.01% year over year. So pretty flat overall, like I've been talking about. All right. So that's all the latest and data on all that. I kind of covered a little bit with interest rates a little bit. No one has a prediction, but there again, you've heard it here. There is a higher probability. Now we're hearing that in September, they're going to raise the Fed interest rate. Now that doesn't directly affect mortgages. The 10-year treasury yield is the thing that flows directly with it, but it tends to follow suit thereafter. And what I mean by that is, your car loans, your HELOC loans, your credit cards, student loans, like all the other items, personal loans, everything that runs immediately with any change of the Fed market rate. So that's the thing we're going to keep an eye on a little bit. We'll see what happens. So job reports, a lot of other news coming out. And people always ask me, why would the Fed, why would they do that? Why are they not lowering rates? The reason why is they're just scared to death of inflation. Bottom line, if we have inflation go higher than where we are today, that is going to be a big problem. So it will affect the housing market. We have 7 to 8 million buyers sitting on the side of the swimming pool right now, waiting to jump in the pool, only if the water temperature is what they want it, which means people want the rates much lower or home prices and all that in the affordability factor. And that's something we're just not going to see. And so the longer this takes time to work itself through, the more the buyer demand, the more pent up demand we'll see. And if rates get, and we've talked about it here, I did not long ago, 5.5 is the magic number for interest rates. If we see it go to that, it's going to be way too much demand and not enough inventory coming out to support it. And then all of a sudden, home prices are just going to skyrocket again, and that's not going to be good. But as far as inflationary stuff, that has to be kept under control, probably 3 to 2.5% or less, only because if that starts to go up, if rates go down, that goes up. And if that goes up, you'll be paying $12 for a gallon of milk. And that is going to be where the pain will continue with unaffordability. And I don't think anybody really wants that, right? All right, let's get into the stuff I've been talking about. What do we do when all the different factors that can happen that you as a buyer or seller absolutely got to pay attention to so that there's no delays and crash and burn, no settlement, and everybody is ticked off to high heaven. In my career of selling almost 750 homes plus, I am very fortunate that there's only been maybe 2 or 3 times that I've actually gone on the intercom as the pilot and said, who cares about your oxygen mask? We're going down, baby. So it's pretty rare. A lot of times we can save things because if you have experience, that's what matters. And there's always a solution, whether it's just more time, money, or something. There's a solution to everything I have learned. So we've talked in the last programs on August 3rd, financing problems, title issues, inspection, repair stuff. And then August 10th, a program on there, appraisal issue things I talked about, buyer delays, seller delays, all the elements of that, and then the settlement company and attorney issues. Last week, we talked about all the insurance stuff with Amy. Tonight, we're going to open it up with one of my favorites that's really crazy is anyone that lives, if you live in an HOA or a condominium, God bless your heart. That's all I can say. It makes it much, much more challenging with real estate because there's so many powers that be. You've got associations, you've got a board of directors, and there's a lot of elements involved with HOA and condo stuff like that. So somebody may ask, how in the world, if I live, and there's a lot of changes coming up. I just talked to a lender today. Oh boy, the short form that we used to call is gone. That's going to go bye-bye. It's coming up. Everything now is going to be the long form version. All of it revolves around risk. That's the bottom line. They want to make sure there's higher reserves. They want to make sure there's less delinquencies, less ownership of investor ownership ratios versus primary ownership. There's a lot of things that are changing because at the end of the day, again, he who has the gold makes the rules. And these investors that take on these loans when someone's purchasing a condominium, they are much, much more riskier because they have a lot more master insurance policy and a lot more repairs that come out of the whole fund. And they want to make sure that that's a guaranteed thing for futuristic things and items. And they don't want to be short on anything whatsoever because that requires like special assessments and the fact that these condos are getting a lot more expensive. Now in Frederick here, a lot of times I've seen, with selling or helping somebody buy a condo, $300 to $500 a month is something that we see pretty atypical. But it's amazing because I know friends that are real estate agents around the country, California, Florida, and other places. It is insane. Some places I've heard well over $1,000 a month just for the condo fee. That's just so you get to swim in a nice swimming pool and have all the rights to the the amenities and everything that's in the community. So, all right. So how in the world can HOA condominium issues, what could possibly go wrong that this could cause a settlement delay? Number one, HOA resale package is delayed. So here's what happens. All right. Whenever I'm selling a place that's a condo or an HOA, the first thing I always let the sellers know is, number one, are you current on that? And they're like, well, because if you're delinquent, you can get foreclosed on faster with a condo or HOA by being delinquent and late than your mortgage insurance, which is insane. They can foreclose quicker on that. So I tell people, if at all costs, do not be late on that. Do not be delinquent on that. When that happens about the resale package of a delay, our job is to we cannot order what is known as the Maryland resale package for a condominium or HOA until we have a buyer in place, because that packet is specific to the buyer. Now, I'd love to be able to order it the day I list the house for sale. That would be fantastic, because 99% of them are all online. We have to go online, and they're very expensive. They're $300, $400, $500 for the resale package. And by Maryland law, the buyers for HOAs get 5 days to rescind the contract, and condominiums 7 days. So we want that time clock to immediately begin as fast as possible and get those documents in the hands of the buyer. Most of these now are literally hundreds of pages. They got bylaws, rules, regulations, budgets, you name it. Even with down to what color freaking dog you can own in the community anymore, it feels like. It sounds crazy, but this is really serious stuff. And that's why they give a lot of time for people to read them, which I have learned 9 out of people don't. They just don't pay attention to what's in all that kind of stuff like that. So the reason why this can be delayed is because we don't get those right away. And even though we live in a society where you can hit one button, click, pay for it, and it should come over in 5 seconds, that's not the case with this stuff, okay? We can do rush orders. I can get them in 3 or 5 days, but a lot of times the seller is responsible to pay for this resale package, not the buyer. And like I said, they're expensive. I've seen them as high as $600, $700 down in Montgomery County in different communities and such like that. So, and you can't use re-ones. You can't use ones. Oh, we bought the house 2 years ago. Can we just use the one we got before? No, everything's different maybe. And so by law, it's got to be current. You have to pay for it as a seller, and the buyer can get out of the contract. And so this can get delayed. If you have a real estate agent that does not understand, it can take 2 to 3 weeks to get these packets. It's pretty serious, because the buyer has that time frame to rescind the contract. They have to have it in their possession. You can't just deliver it to the buyer a day or two before settlement. That you can't do that. Now, if they waive their rights of it, if they waive it and say, okay, it's fine, no big deal. That's a different story, but that's got to be in writing. But I've never met a buyer yet that's willing to do that. So that can delay things. Really, really important. Outstanding HOA fees and things, like I told you, that is really, really serious. Those have to be paid. You cannot catch those up at settlement as a seller. It's not like a mortgage where it's maybe you did the forbearance program because you were late on payments and the bank and the investor allowed you to back end it. You were able to add it just to the back of your mortgage, whether you were 2 months or 5 months late or whatever it was. Those days are gone. That program ended back, recently here, and those days are gone. You cannot do that with delinquent HOA stuff. And so therefore the title company and us, we're waiting within that transaction. That has to be done. It doesn't matter where it comes from. You put on a credit card, it's got to be paid up. You've got to satisfy anything that's outstanding within that. Okay. So that's really, really important. Title needs this as well. Title companies, they are going to hound you down like us to make sure that this information is received and taken care of, because they are at a stop point within the entire transaction. So definitely don't want that to be a problem. I've never really had it. I've had sellers that have had to borrow money from Uncle Bob to pay their stuff to be able to come up current. And so really important. It's a lot easier with an HOA where you're paying $100 or less a month. But when you get into these condos that are $300, $400, $500 a month, it can be a pretty serious amount of money at that point. HOA approval. This is the one I was telling you about with a lender. HOA approval is required but not obtained. This is the lender, Your Honor. This is their job. The first thing a lender does when they see that it's an HOA or condo, man, especially a condominium, they are jumping on right away to be able to get with the condo association, company manager, all of them, to get this form, short or long. Now it's only going to be long, to get these questionnaires answered. And 9 out of 10 times, the association's not talking bad about them, but the truth, they really don't have much incentive to get them filled out and even accurately. many, many times. They have to go back and forth and say, hey, you missed this checkbox. You missed this. You didn't clarify this. And what happens is the underwriter for the loan. Now, if you're doing a cash deal buying a condo, who cares? It doesn't matter because it's only about if you're getting a loan. What happens is the underwriter wants to see that whole entire form because the underwriter is who informs the risk level of that condominium to the investor. The investor is the one who dictates everything because they're taking on the risk by giving the money. All right. So that's the big one about the approval getting maintained. That right now with condos, 45 days. So buyers, if you're looking to buy a condominium, 45-day settlement. You want something sooner, forget it. That is going to be even tougher coming up in the next few months. It could take longer. Who knows? Because if these guys do not have the systems in place to be able to obtain additional information, it's just going to take longer. That's it. So you want to make sure you're with like who I prefer, really good lenders that do not play games with this. They know how this works. They are they have teams and they are proactive to get this information, knowing this could be a massive delay potentially for settlement. So condominium litigation is affecting financing. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. One of the questions I ask sellers all the time is, are you in the middle of a lawsuit with the condominium or HOA? And they're like, what? You would know it. You'd get documentation. You would know if there is a dispute over something where it's the owners have come against the condo for some lawsuit, frivolous or not. It could be over a special assessment. It could be anything. It could be a lawsuit because of somebody got injured on the property and because they have a master insurance policy. I've heard it all. This is really, really important because a lot of times the loan cannot happen because if there's any in-play litigation legally within the community, forget it. The investors back out 9 out of 10 times. They don't want any part of it. The reason why goes back to a risk assessment once again. So, and that's the thing that's really stinks about this is the fact that an owner of a condominium unit, an HOA, it's not as prevalent with HOA, but a condominium unit, you got a lot less say. You really can't do a lot about it. And that's what's a little tricky about it. So, all right, we covered all that stuff with the HOA condo stuff. Government recording office delays, county recording backlogs. This was really, I talked a little about this before, that this was really a COVID thing. Obviously, that was a nightmare that we saw a lot of things shut down to the degree where we saw deeds and everything. Instead of them getting recorded in a week or two, it was taking months and months and months because federal and everything was closed for during COVID for like 3 months, 6 months, whatever it was. So recording backlog logs, we don't really have that here. Natural disasters in places and all that, recording and doing all that. Or getting the information. Tax office errors is another one that's put in this. And then permit or code violation issues. And so when it comes to government recording delays, permit or code violation issues, this can be a little bit tricky right here. No doubt about it. It's rare, but when it happens, it's not something that we can typically get fixed. And that's normally our real estate attorneys and the title companies are the ones that are looking for these things and tackling them, out of the gate. As soon as we get a contract in place, they're pretty much doing a title search, an abstract title search, it's called. And that's what they're looking for. You know, besides all the title things with clouds on title breaks and issues and problems, they're looking at violations. Anything that's showing up, that would be a problem. Municipal lien searches that were delayed. That's pretty rare as well. So that happens, but it's rare. Let's get into things that are a lot more prevalent, that are exciting. Property conditional things. Damage from storms, fire, flooding, and vandalism before closing. My golden rule, and I have, no matter what, my golden rule when I'm helping a buyer, I try to do the walkthrough to see the property is, if I can, I like to do it literally an hour, 2 hours before settlement. Anything can change and happen before you sign and the ink is dry. It's that simple. You can by contract, you can inspect the property. I like to inspect properties if there's been work that's been done by the seller for our buyers. They can produce receipts, but we have up to 5 days before settlement to go physically inspect the property and make sure the work's been done in a workmanlike manner and all that. But even if I did that 5 days before, so if something wasn't done correctly or not done at all, we have time now, because if you go an hour or two before, you have no time. Can't change. It's just, you can't do it. That is a disaster waiting to happen. But if I got 5 days, I do that as step one. And then we do another secondary walkthrough. We do that right before settlement because obviously in 5 days, again, anything can change. I've heard it all. I've heard houses can be flooded, water line breaks, you name it, especially in the wintertime. That's crazy. I also pay attention pretty readily to if the house is vacant or if the sellers are still living in there and they're literally moving out the day of settlement. That's pretty different because you got somebody at the property. But damage from storms, this can be delayed. Hurricane, tornado, things like that. Now, this has happened with your homeowner's insurance policy. If we have a really, really significant storm, whether snow, ice, sleet, hail, tornadoes, hurricanes in the area, you would be amazed, especially with AI. These homeowners insurance companies now, I should say the investors and the underwriters, they now have programs in place where they do not release the funds and okay the final clear to close and settlement. If there's a major storm the day before settlement, somehow, some way, they've got ways to know if the house that's being sold that next day or 2 days from now, they already know that's in like a high profile danger area where they want to make sure it's checked out before it goes to settlement. This is something that's only become more readily in like the last 3 years. So I think a lot of it is connecting with AI. What they do is have programs where they're typing in the properties and those properties are being linked to any of these kind of storms and things like that, especially places like Florida and other places like that. So damage from storms, fire. A fire could happen. I've heard of it. I literally have heard, I've never had this happen to my buyers, thank God. There's been a flood, vandalism. That's another big thing with vacant homes. We want to check those out an hour or two before settlement because they could be vandalized in the middle of the night. Who knows? It's vacant. Somebody breaks in. You could have went there 24 hours ago and the house was fine. Next day it got broken into. This happens all the time. So next big piece in this is property condition is final walkthrough reveals new damages. This is really, really significant tying into this stuff like that. This will stop everything, no doubt about it, because until the buyer actually signs the deed and it gets recorded, it's still the ownership primarily of the seller. So people would ask, okay, if something happened right at settlement, like right around the time of it, and who's responsible? What insurance company, the seller or the buyer? I've always told sellers, you need to keep your insurance, your homeowner's policy in place until the day after settlement, even though primarily you're not responsible because the buyer typically can't get their loan. They can't get their loan unless an insurance binder has already been given to them through the insurance company. That's something you can talk to Amy and Connie Phillips about how that all works. But this is really significant though about any new damage or changes. This will definitely stop settlement and, unless something's already been worked out on paper, which we've done, and it's already been paid for per se by the seller. It's already been paid to a company, a contractor, whatever in advance, if something's going to be done later. And somebody would say, well, why would a buyer ever go through with a settlement if something had changed materially with the property? Depends on the severity of it. It really, really does. And some of it, new damage, some would cause damage, even like on a rent back. The damage, it could just be something as simple as the people were moving out and they damaged the walls. So we did the walkthrough initially. We did the comeback walkthrough after like a rent back, and all of a sudden they moved our furniture and they like nicked up and screwed up the paint and walls and drywall and whatever. So these are small things, but some buyers, it's pretty darn significant and they're willing to upset the whole apple cart and stop everything until it's remediated. And a lot of times we'll put money in escrow to be able to cover these things up front. This is done way in advance so that there was any damages. It just gets taken out of the escrow that the title company's already holding. This is a showstopper typically that keeps from holding up settlement. Because if that settlement gets held up on a Friday, forget it. It's crazy to try to come back Monday, because now the buyer has to do the CD all over. It has to run back through underwriting, the per diem day charge amounts with interest, and everything changes. It is a flippin' nightmare. And so we as real estate agents are a little nutty about making sure the plane hits the runway with all the wheels on the ground, if you know what I mean. All right. The other one on this about property condition talks about appliance and fixtures, including the sale, have been removed. Oh, this is nuts. Okay. When you buy a house, one of the things in the disclosures is called the conveyance sheet. This is the thing that outlines very specifically what the seller is leaving at the property that you're going to inherit as a buyer. that would primarily, first and foremost, be like the appliances, the stove, the oven, the refrigerator, microwave, whatever, whether it's built in or not. It could be anything, okay? Shades, blinds, you name it. All that stuff in there. Now, this is pretty rare, but this is why we do the walkthrough. There's been times where we know what the seller is supposed to leave. And then all of a sudden you go to the walkthrough and it's no bueno. It's gone. It's like, what the flip? Where's the washer and dryer? The sellers were supposed to keep the washer and dryer. Now, I've only had one instance right before settlement. This happened to me. This was one of my sellers, and they just got caught up. It's easy to do. They just got caught up in the move, all the fine details and everything. And, the buyers, I was there. The buyers, I try to go to the walkthrough for when the buyers, represent the seller, they come through just to make sure everything's okay. Cause the last thing I want is any quirks at the last second. So we get to the house here, and this was years ago. And sure enough, washer and dryer was gone. I called my seller, and they had a moving company come, and they're the ones who are taking everything. And by accident, I guess the moving company kind of thought that washer and dryer doesn't convey. The sellers are taking it. And next thing I know, the buyers are there and the agent, and they're like, where in the heck's the washer and dryer? And I said, I got good news and bad news. The bad news is it's on a Atlas Van Lines truck heading to California. It's not coming back. And the good news is, what do you do in that situation? Real simple. I looked at my sellers and I said, okay, get ready to open up your checkbook. You're about ready to give the buyers a brand new washer and dryer. And we were able to, in 2 minutes time, come to an agreement. And the buyers, they got a check right there, and they got to go buy a brand new washer and dryer. End of the story. Done. So this is something that can be worked out sometimes pretty easily, but not everything is that simple. So that's a really big one with property conditions and stuff like that. All right, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to thank our other sponsors and all that, get back to legal issues, and appreciate you. Take care. Check this out.
Hi there. I'm Brianne Paul, an attorney with Community Title Network, the most trusted title partner for real estate professionals, buyers, and sellers. Our experienced attorneys, settlement agents, and processing staff put you at ease whether your closing involves residential real estate, commercial real estate, or other real estate matters in between. We work with the most respected title underwriters in the region to make sure your rights are protected and all title problems are resolved quickly. Experience close to home with our many locations, serving Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, Delaware, Washington, D.C., and Ohio, as well as remote signing options available. Reliable, efficient, top-notch service. That's Community Title Network. How can we help you today? Find us online at www.communitytn.com or call us at 301-304-6620.
When you care deeply about Frederick County, you want your generosity to make a meaningful impact. The Community Foundation provides trusted leadership and guidance to connect people who care with the causes they care about, supporting local students, nonprofits, and community needs. Together, we're creating enduring impact and making more possible across Frederick County. Visit frederickcountygives.org.
Stuff's good. All right, we're back. I'm Darren Ahearn with RE/MAX Results. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share it with everybody, and you'll be notified. And I appreciate you tuning in. All right, we're talking about what do we do when all hell breaks loose? What could possibly go wrong in a real estate transaction? And the thing I always tell people, especially those that are first-time home buyers, everything. Yeah, so be careful of the noise and all the fun dancing TikTok videos out there. It can be quite noisy. I can just tell you that right now. You can't even fathom the journey at half the time of what we're about ready to get into and do. This is no doubt the most complex. And in my 23 years, it's gotten more than ever about for selling and buyer. I mean, look at it. 70 pages, 65, 70 pages is a normal Maryland real estate contract now. And if you live in Montgomery County, you can add 19 pages to that right there. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I got real estate agents from all the country. I got a few that are in like Tennessee and places. And we just joke at conferences. When I go to the RE/MAX conference in Vegas or wherever, and one of my best friends, he owns the Honolulu, Hawaii office and RE/MAX out there. And it's crazy. Some of these states out there is funny. They got like 10 or 12 pages. I'm like, seriously? We're just getting started in Maryland. This is the People's Republic of Maryland. And then there's other states like California. One of my good friends is out in Los Angeles. Are you kidding me? They're like 100 pages. That's insanity. And it's only getting worse and growing. So this is why experience matters. This is why we do what we do. And I love it because I'm not afraid to tackle Mount Everest. And when it comes to the real estate stuff. So, all right. So we've been going through all the HOA stuff, government stuff, property condition stuff. Now we're going to get into another segment. What could possibly hold up a settlement? How's about legal issues? Man, I just had this. I have this at least 3, 4, 5 times a year. That just is fantastic. Somebody asked me, what are the most difficult situations, whether you're helping a seller or a buyer? Mostly a seller, but it also bleeds into affecting potentially a buyer. Legal issues. Some would say estate sales. Estate sales can be a little sticky. It depends. It depends how many people are involved, who are the decision makers, who has power of attorneys and blah, blah, blah. And, who's in charge of the estate and all that and how many lawyers are involved, right? Tax attorneys, you name it. I want to know names and find out. So some would say that can be pretty tough, but I would say ultimately divorce. Absolutely. This is definitely some of the toughest stuff because 9 out of 10 times you've got 2 attorneys, not 1. Whenever I do estate stuff and you got 1 attorney involved, ain't no fighting. It's set up. It's done. It's already been agreed upon 9 out of 10 times. It's usually in the middle or finishing in probate maybe, or it's in a state where it's a living irrevocable trust or something has already been set up to where now it bypasses probate and it's a lot smoother. That's one of the things my boys are going to enjoy one day with me. Is the fact that my entire life is going to be in a trust. I have no ownership. I have nothing. The trust is and the beneficiary of the trust would be my 6 boys. And one day when I'm gone and I'm in a box, I told them, you're set. You're all good. You won't have to go through a whole ton of stuff and pay crazy gains and all these taxes and deal with lawyers and watch literally 30 to 50% of my entire estate to go to something else rather than you. And yes, it costs a lot of money to set up and do, but this is what rich people do. This is what smart people do. They know the laws and how to use them, not to do anything wrong, but to do what the laws are already there to do and help protect things and do it in such a way. So when it comes to this, divorce proceeding stuff is just crazy because 9 out of 10 times I got to work with 2 attorneys. And these attorneys are representing 2 different people who are not real thrilled and happy with each other. And the attorneys, they could care less at the end of the day, but their job is to rely on me as the real estate agent. And so whenever we do these, whether it's inside of a trustee sale, it's called on the legal side of it or not, it doesn't matter. They heavily rely on us. And that's something that the 2 parties in a divorce and stuff with these legal issues don't like. They typically want us to side with one or the other. And I tell people, absolutely not. We don't play games and side like that. My job is to represent the entire sale and the contract, and the attorneys will give advice, legal counsel. That's their job. We don't practice law as real estate agents, even though half the time I feel like I'm an attorney because we're thinking about Maryland laws and real estate law all the time. At the end of the day, the judge makes all the decisions and they heavily require and rely on us as agents. They let us pretty much do our job as judges. And I just had this happen not too long ago. And when the judge intervenes, man, everybody has to stop and listen. It's that simple. They got the final say. And so those can be pretty sticky. And that can delay things because if there's motions that are filed in court proceedings, no matter what's involved with the proceedings, if the divorce isn't either finalized or it's in the middle of it, if it's not, that can be really, really, really tricky when it comes to dissolving a property that is marital property they call that's equal ownership or not. The next big thing is probate or estate administration. I talked about that. The biggest thing is having the correct documentation. So many times when I meet families, I ask who's got power of attorney or who's the estate, representative and all. And a lot of times that's maybe not been fully in place yet, or it's not done correctly. And that's when I get my real estate attorneys involved to review whatever documents they have, or if they have none, to get this properly established within the system to make sure that I have the right person signing documents and not somebody that has no authority to do so. You would be amazed how many people put a house on the market with a real estate agent, not having this in place. And then all of a sudden, a week or two before settlement, this stuff is discovered that it's not set up correctly legally. That is a absolute flipping disaster, because this isn't the kind of stuff that you can get through the courts and a judge to sign off on it. You can't get this stuff done in 3 or 4 days or a week. This typically can take 2 weeks or longer, depending on all of the elements involved that need to be properly, legalized. And so I am crazy about legal issues when it comes to estate and divorce sales. The other one, bankruptcy filed by the buyer seller. This is nuts. I've had this happen. I tell sellers all the time, if you're in the middle of a bankruptcy 13 or a bankruptcy of any sort kind, I got to know about that. If it's in the middle of it, I got to know at what position it's into. Is it going to be finalized, or is this going to be an ongoing proceedings that's still not going to be finalized until after the sale? Because it all depends on if the property is inside of the bankruptcy or if it's separate. That is the key factor within that. So again, I always revert back to talk to the legal counsel and seek after them after I've asked my questions as an agent to make sure I'm trying to be proactive than reactive in any sorts and have any problems. Court orders affecting title. This is another big thing that can happen legally, is again, when the courts can step in out of nowhere. And if something isn't going the way that's agreed to and it gets changed, this definitely delays things. The biggest problem more than anything, 9 out of 10 times, is these things affect the buyers. So when I've helped a buyer buy a house and there's a divorce going on, get ready. This has a lot more wild cards in the stack, if you will. If it's an estate sale, if there's a bankruptcy involved, if there's late payments within the property because, they're not paying on it, you name it. These are the questions that is not wrong. The seller, by the way, has an obligation, is a known material fact, to be able to disclose this to the buyer. And that's another big thing with inexperienced agents that do not know what questions and things have to be answered to be able to give to the other party to cooperate to have this go as smooth as possible. Because if it's delayed by the seller side and the seller can't perform and you can't go to settlement and the buyer is expecting this, the buyer can sue the seller for non-performance. End of the story. Now, a judge can override that if it's been something internally within the legal system, but I don't have time to go through some of those details of that, but it can get really sticky real fast. And so, yeah, we stay awake a little longer at night with those kind of transactions than not. So next big piece, I got about 7 or 8 minutes, contract disputes. God forbid we'd ever have a dispute that's even in writing. On a handshake all the time. He said, she said, you told me this, I thought this, I assumed this. Who cares? Here's the bottom line with real estate or anything. If it's not in writing, it doesn't flippin' exist. End of the story. So when I hear people saying, well, they told me this and they were going to, all I go back to is, what's contract say? What's contract say? What's the contract say? Because that's what the law is going to follow if anything ever goes to mediation disputes or legal disputes and legal stuff. So that's what disputes over what? Number one, we see closing costs. Closing costs change by the day. Remember, I told you before, per diem stuff. This is all the interest, per diem days, rent back amounts, you name it. I've seen all of it. Interest rate change. If somebody locks in at the last second, and a lot of times as a buyer, you have to lock in your interest rate at least probably 5 or 7 days before. Again, talk to your lender. Last minute change of these things, they can change those numbers right away. It just does. So closing cost things is very important to pay attention to. And 3 days from settlement, roller coasters going at hill. We really can't change that. The other thing that we cannot do as a dispute is if there was an error that the title company made because the contract changed and the title company never got the addendum document with those changes. That's us as agents' faults. One of the first things I do when there's a closing cost change or any change to ever find any financial amounts, it could be commission, it could be broker fees, it could be anything. First thing we do when it's in writing to that, we have to get that to the lender and title company immediately. Not every agent understands how important that is to do on the spot, because if that gets forgotten and not known, it comes back on us as agents, not so much the title company. Personal property included in the sale. This is really big. We talked about conveyance sheet, personal items. Anytime, and this happens a lot when we sell properties, there's times when the seller says, hey, the 0-turn riding lawnmower, can you, I don't want to put it on Facebook Marketplace or anything like that. We really don't want to like give it away for free, but we might. It may convey with the house, but we don't want to do that up front. We want to see if the buyer's willing to pay for it. Here's the thing. No matter what is being sold to a prospective buyer or the buyer of that house or whatever, personal property included and it's in the sale or whatever, it has to show zero value 9 out of 10 times for the lender. The underwriter and investor do not like to see personal property instead of fixtures legally in real estate that is being conveyed they want it at no cost, period. Because it's, you can't be like, hey, I'm going to just let my Mercedes or my Harley Davidson just, come in. No, you can't do that. You can't keep it in the contract associated within the real property of real estate 9 out of 10 times, because they don't like that. They just don't like that. And so it has to be outside of it. It has to be an agreement separate. We as agents, we present what they want to do as a seller buyer within this, if they're asking for something or offering something. But at the end of the day, this is a really big thing that can delay settlement, because 9 out of 10 times these items we do not include in the contract of sale. It is separate. It's a separate agreement and it's settlement. You guys exchange funds. That's between you guys. Hope you guys become best friends kind of a thing. This can mess stuff up because they'll want it in the sale, the contract. They'll want it to be in writing, but they don't understand it's not attached to the final outcome of settling or not. And this is why there could be a possible delay. And if agents aren't experienced in knowing the ins and outs of these things and the rules, it's a nightmare. It can be a really big disaster. And the sellers and buyers are both pissed off about it, to be honest with you, because they're looking to us to take part in this kind of stuff quite a bit. The next big thing is possession of the date. Rentbacks especially is the biggest thing that can, delay things if there's been a change of agreement within a rentback situation based on an amount or based on the date and time frames. Okay. So possession date. Yes. I've seen settlements obviously we've had them change practically at the last minute. And that's part of the biggest delay is moving it up or moving it back, depending on what buyers and sellers agree to and want and need. So repair obligations, we spoke about a little bit before within the contract dispute. This really ties back into the buyer has this expectation. The number one thing isn't so much that the seller didn't fix something that was agreed upon in the contract. The bigger rub becomes when the buyer has an expectation. I'll give you a good example. Has about a new roof. The seller says, okay, we're going to put a new roof on the house before settlement. Okay. Who gets to pick it? Well, if the seller's paying for it, the seller gets to choose the company and the shingles and all. And what if the buyer says, whoa, we want 50-year life architectural shingles and we want them like, mahogany brown or something crazy. And the seller is not, unless they agree, the seller they pretty much choose and they're going to be within reason. And what happens is if this is not worked out in advance and it's not crystal clear to what the seller is getting, whether it's a roof, it doesn't matter what repairs, what fixes, what's being done to the property. If it's not crystal clear, I promise you 9 out of 10 times the buyer comes in with an attitude that they wanted it to be a better contractor, more expensive product, you name it. And then all of a sudden they want to hold up settlement because it doesn't meet what they thought it was going to be. And so when it comes to this kind of stuff, I am nutty and crazy about making sure it is in writing, crystal clear, so a buyer can never really truly dispute it. In fact, I like to talk about it with them well before settlement, 2 weeks before, so we're not showing up and they're all mad about it. Experience matters, boys and girls. And the last thing as we end up the program is credit or concessions. Yeah, this is something I think is so wild in my career. 24 years ago, if the house wasn't clean enough, okay, or it could have been anything, and that's normally what it is. The buyer's like, the refrigerator wasn't clean enough. We're going to have Mary maids come in and cleaning professionally because the sellers suck. They didn't clean it good. Even though the contract says, unless otherwise written in agreement, broom, sweep, and clean. How in the heck do you define broom, sweep, and clean? Everybody has a different definition. Sellers want to try to clean the house and keep, have free of debris and have everything out and cleaned up is like to their, whatever they think the least amount they can get away with maybe. In sellers, they want like not one, or buyers, not one, but 2 cleaning companies to come in, it feels like. In our culture today with entitlement, it's like worse. They want the house to be like brand new, cleaning lady forever, right? And so what happens in this, it's funny, is whether it's a repair or cleaning or anything, what would happen back in the old days is at the last minute, if a buyer wasn't satisfied, we actually had the ability at a settlement to be able to negotiate at the table before the ink is almost dry, to be able to say, okay, house isn't clean enough for you. All right, we'll get Mary Maids. How much you want? 200, 300, whatever it costs, $400, fine. And and they would put that on the settlement sheet on the spot. It never had to go back to the underwriter to get approval. And it could just be changed. And it's less money out of the seller's pocket, and it's a credit. And now it's being taken care of through the escrow, and it could be done. This kind of stuff was normal behavior 25 years ago. Forget it. 5, 10 years ago, everything changed. Where the lenders and the underwriters come back and the investors, nothing can be changed. Nothing. You can't give 1 penny difference to a credit or anything on the contract within the Alta settlement statement sheet at settlement. None of it. It's done. It's already been dry for 3 days, if you will. And so this is something that was really, really hard for us to adapt to as agents and buyers and sellers, because it was a little bit of wild old west. And then all of a sudden we found ourselves having not just one set of handcuffs on us. We have 10 of them on us now, and it's crazy. So it requires being more proactive to understand the rules of engagement and having things done and worked out well in advance to a settlement date. So these are some of the main big things I wanted to share with you tonight. And the next segment, I'm going to finish up on utility occupancy issues. We're going to get into construction delays, new homes, fraud, security issues, weather emergencies, closing day issues, what happens if the title date is missed, and what are your options legally and how that can play out. And so it's going to be crazy. Buckle up, get ready, let everybody know. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to your weekly dose of real estate update right here on Everything Frederick Live at 401 Market Street here. And thank you guys. Happy buying and selling. I'll see you each and every Monday at 7 o'clock. Take care now.
Thanks for joining Darren Ahearn on your real estate update. For more smart local real estate insight, market trends, and practical advice for buyers, sellers, and homeowners, follow and subscribe to stay one step ahead.
This episode is a proud production of the Everything Frederick Live Podcast Network. Your home for Frederick's best podcasts, streaming daily on YouTube.